Man, I really want to shop for insurance today. We have spent a lot of money, time, effort on technology, but we don't build technology for technology's sake. We did embedded before it was cool, and I think we did a precursor for AI before it was cool. To date, the technology and the recommendation engines and the AI and all of that are making the agent more effective. Using technology, that's a win-win-win for everybody.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Insurance Distribution Podcast. I'm here today with David Embry, CEO and founder at Mylo. David, how are you? It is great to meet you.
I'm great. How are you doing, Martin? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Let's dive right away. You have 20 years of experience in the insurance sector. Would love to hear a little bit about your journey and how you eventually ended up founding Mylo.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you it was some grand plan, but it really wasn't. I was at a big financial services company for 20 years in the retirement space, and we combined that business with a couple other businesses to become an even bigger business. They wanted me to move overseas and do some work, and I did a little consulting for somebody in the insurance space. Got to know a big international broker through that, and really the simple idea was to do small value, high volume insurance at scale. You needed to layer technology on top of that, and this is pre-AI and all of that. But the premise was that, and they had like literally, they're like billions of dollars company. They've got a bunch of small business, they've got a bunch of Main Street personal lines. I made an offhanded comment to the CEO of that company, and he said, "Put a deck together and put it in front of the board." And literally, we walked out with $5 million. We incubated it in one of their operating companies. We spun out, rebranded, spun out, raised outside capital in 2019, bought them out at the end of 2022. So, that is how we got here in a nutshell. And then, of course, as things have progressed, right, I like to say you can't catch the wave unless you're out surfing, and we've been out surfing in this space. And so originally the idea was, let's build algorithms, which takes what's in somebody's head, an insurance person's head, and put it in, like a simple if this then that, and deliver that using technology in a call center environment to people who don't have to be a subject matter expert in insurance across the board. And that's what we built, right? And then as machine learning and AI have come in, it starts to get smarter. Right, we can deliver that in other ways, whether that's online, whether that's on the phone, whether that's on your phone, and we continue to evolve. And I think we're very nicely positioned to allow ultimately individuals or small business owners, which by the way are the same, to get insurance recommendations, bind insurance in the way that they want to interact with organizations like ours. Because let's face it, nobody wakes up, unless you did this morning, thinking, man, I really want to shop for insurance today, right? It is truly the worst investment you can make, right? The best thing that can happen is you spend thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of dollars on insurance over your lifetime, and the best thing that can happen is you don't use it, right? And so that's the premise for who we are and why we exist and what the problem we're trying to solve.
First off, congrats on all the journey. I understand that you've been thinking about high volume, thus automation from the early days. Probably with all the tools that we currently have at our disposal, this is the golden era of potentially building a lot of automation. But before jumping into AI, which we will be covering, can you share whatever you feel comfortable in terms of numbers, in terms of magnitude that currently Mylo is serving, number of customers?
Yeah, we've got 70 plus thousand clients across 48 states. $120 million in premium. We're about 65% small commercial, 35% personal. We had some other lines of business that we dabbled in, got out of. So you can go to our website and get them, but it goes to a partner because you can't be all things to everybody, even though I'd love to be all things to everybody. And so we're focused really on high volume, low premium commercial lines and Main Street personal lines.
Would you consider your Mylo as a technology company that happens to sell insurance, or would you rather say that it's a company that serves with insurance that has a very strong technology component? It's a small detail, but it might change the way of thinking. Like, we're a technology company, or we are an insurance company that leverages technology?
We're a digital broker, right? And so what that means is we focus on providing solutions for our clients through our agents in the way that the consumer wants to interact with us. We have spent a lot of money, time, effort on technology, but we don't build technology for technology's sake. Right? We use technology to solve a problem, and that is making better, faster, more relevant insurance recommendations to small commercial business owners and Main Street homeowners. And we do that, as I said before. You can go to choosemylo.com, right? You can see how we make recommendations. We have some bind online capabilities. You can get that same information when you talk to somebody. If you start in our website and then you talk to somebody, all the information's there. If you start in one of our partners, channel partners ecosystems, we can embed that information, embed our capabilities in their ecosystem. And again, it all sits on the same chassis. We also have the ability to deliver our capabilities in other people's environments. We're multi-tenant, but we haven't really done that at scale because we're focused on making our own business as efficient and beneficial to the consumer as possible.
Like somehow this debate on whether high frequency products, as you're calling like personal lines or small businesses, this debate that whether they will ever go fully self-served or they will always remain a fraction of this via the agent, you just manage both, if I
And
understand
it
correctly,
doesn't
right?
really matter. And the simpler it is, the more likely it is to be completely automated. So if you think about it, and we don't do these, but if people talk about embedded phone insurance, travel insurance, pet insurance, simple to make a straight through transaction, right? As you move into auto only, simple to make a straight through transaction with some carriers, right? If you add home or you add umbrella, it becomes more complex. Not all carriers have the capability. If you move into small business like GL, PL, some of that's pretty simple. If you start adding BOP or cyber or other things, the more complexity, the less you're able to actually do it online without talking to somebody. But ultimately, the ability of the insurance companies are going to increase to do more of that on the complexity scale. But we don't really care, right? We can deliver the same recommendation if you interact with us through an embedded capability in one of our partners' ecosystems, through our own website, talking to somebody in our agency. You get the same recommendation. You get the access to the same carriers. And and that's how, if you walked out to our agency out here, we've got, I don't know, 60 people sitting out there taking phone calls from all over the country on different types of insurance. They don't have to be a subject matter expert on every single thing because we are giving them the recommendation from Milo's perspective, from Milo's seat, and we can do that, at scale. And that's really what we're trying to invest in, do, grow.
Yeah, it's the real coworker that you're offering them, and this provides them with easiness in terms of focusing on the transaction per se and not in all the other stuff that they might need to care. And I guess
That's
this for
right.
training.
We did embedded before it was cool, and I think we did a precursor for AI before it was cool. So
I was gonna actually jump into that, given that you've been in this journey of providing technology to the full distribution chain. Which are the things that currently, with the new state of technology slash AI, you're mostly excited about that seemed impossible 10 years ago to think about automating, and now it's becoming a reality?
yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things. Like carriers have been the barrier in terms of their capabilities to allow us to truly do things. And if you say you're a digital broker, what does that mean? That doesn't necessarily mean we force somebody to go through a website or on their phone to buy insurance. It really means we use technology where it makes sense to make the experience easy, being a better, faster, cheaper, right, for the consumer and also for our agency. Um, just the power with which the models can learn and understand and focus on, because we also have clients on the other end that are carriers, right, that we want to feed. So we want to get them the risk that, they want. Um, and that's a mutually beneficial relationship. And so the models that we have now, are way faster, strong, better, in terms of how they learn and how smart they can be. Um, when I started, we thought, 20, 30% of the business that we do would be straight through online without talking to somebody. That's not been true, right? We've actually seen people hover over the button, or I do think that as people get used to doing this, as one of the big things, in my perspective, with the, chat GPTs and Claudes of the world, right, is the conversational nature, right, of the interface. I think as people get more comfortable with that, certainly from a demographic standpoint, you're going to see people want to bind more online, have more trust in what's out there. But today, like, a lot of people want to talk to somebody and make sure I don't make a mistake, right? I don't, I'm not being, it's fear and greed, right? I want to make sure I'm not paying too much, right? Or, that's the greed part. Fear is I want to make sure I'm properly covered if something happens for the risk that I have for my small business or my home and auto, et cetera. And so there's not like a right or wrong, right? And the technology enhances the capability and allows us to make better recommendations more effectively, right? Which lets us operate at scale, lets the consumer or small business owner get a better recommendation in a shorter period of time, allows the insurance company to get the type of risk that they want. It allows us to ask fewer questions, right? And so, all of those things are and have been, sort of combining to make it a better experience. I think the biggest thing is the flywheel is spinning faster, right? And we're getting more precise recommendations with less input, allowing models to learn and get smarter, and deliver more consistency across the recommendations that we make across our client base, regardless of how somebody interacts with us, right? If more people interact with us and they want to buy it online, we're all for that. But we're not forcing that. It's not our way or the highway.
Their decision. And you mentioned you have 60 people, or at least in this office, 60 people receiving calls and getting on the phone. Always, I think probably would not only be on the emission part, but then on post service.
That's right. We have, that includes sales plus service.
What is your vision around voice AI in this sense? Because it's the technology is advancing at great speed. Like
Yeah,
sometimes I would not say you cannot detect, but the ability for agents to interact is quite impressive. Uh, do you see a future where some of these interactions at least happen through voice, but with an AI and not a person?
sure. Of course. I mean, we actually have tried, some models. We do a lot of screening to get people on the phone, ask questions, et cetera. It hasn't been more effective yet, right? But it will be. And I think that, we've made great strides, like leaps and bounds, as you know, um, over the last couple of years that will continue to happen. And like an agentic agent, I know that's uh, a play on words, but an agentic insurance agent, right, is going to happen. And for some subset of the clients that we get will be the way that we fulfill those clients. Are we doing it yet? No. Or have we tried it? Absolutely. Could we do it? Yes. Has it been effective current to date? Not yet. So
Yeah, it's a matter of testing the technology until it reaches a point where you can start delegating pieces of it, I guess.
that's exactly right. And we also, I think it's just another interface that people can choose to um, pick in terms of how they get their insurance recommendation. I think the main point for us is the recommendation that you get in any interaction with us is the same, right? And so the delivery mechanism is really up to the consumer in terms of how they want to interact with us.
And how do you think the role of the agent per se, the human agent, just to distinguish, uh, should evolve in a world where a lot of the things could be discussed with an AI, a voice AI, a chat online by doing it? Where do you think the value will still remain relevant, and where do you think things that are doing today will probably not
Well,
be
like I
as
said, the
relevant?
simpler, the more likely somebody is able to believe they're getting the right recommendation at good value without talking to somebody. The more complex, and we're on the, if you think about the big insurance world, right? We're in small commercial and Main Street personal line, so we're on the simple side of that. But even within our world, like the less complexity that you have, the more likely we'll be able to deliver um, a recommendation across multiple carriers that's bindable in real time, online or in an embedded environment or with an agentic agent. Like today, 95+% of our volume is closed by agents, but those agents have been able to increase the throughput in terms of what they could sell on a monthly basis, 5 times over the last number of years because they don't have to be a subject matter and expert in everything. We're making Mylo recommendations in terms of coverage carrier, right? We're not asking duplicative questions, right? All of those things are happening. But I do see, so you could say that to date, the technology and the recommendation engines and the AI and all of that are making the agent more effective, but still being delivered through a human, the actual bind for the vast majority of what we do. I think that'll come down as people choose to, buy from people. But I think for the large part, for the foreseeable future, insurance will still be something where the vast majority of the stuff is done with a human agent, right? Enhanced by technology.
In some sense, like, you are not competing against an agent that is going full commercial, very personal, high touch, but you're potentially competing a lot with the lemonades, the hippos, the direct to consumers that do not offer like this hybrid approach with technology plus agent, but they do like full technology. Is this statement correct, or would you argue
So we
differently?
have some of those carriers that are like tech forward, bind online only, or bind online mostly on our platform, right? Because we have lots of distribution. And so, we partner with those people who've invested in technology only or technology mainly go to market strategy, and we can provide them, we can use the same thing to get them the type of risk that they want in our environment, and then let people opt out to one of our agents, for that stuff. And so, like with everybody, like the carriers are in many cases, not just the ones you reference, but Liberty, Hartford, you watch TV, Progressive, like, three of our biggest partners, right? They have their own direct consumer ecosystems. And in some case, we benefit from them sending stuff to us, and then we certainly place business with them. And it's not a zero sum game, right? I think there's enough volume out there to go around, right, for us to be able to play in all of those spaces.
Yeah, I think in the end, the consumer is the one that is being benefited by these full technically approaches, because it also pushed the barriers of all the digital players or non-digital players a little bit higher. So I think that is the
No
the good
question. When
sense
I
of competition
started,
here.
we had one of the biggest companies in the space fly out because remember we started this inside a big international broker, and they flew 10 people to Kansas City because that's where we're located, and sat at a table and said to us, "We will never allow somebody to buy online without talking to one of underwriters." That was a decade ago. That company has spent more money, or at least as much money as anybody else, doing exactly that. And then COVID happened, right? Which just exacerbated people's perspective or people's willingness and insurance companies' willingness to let people buy online. Consumers' desire to buy online without talking to somebody, right? And then COVID happened, right? And we all started buying online. And so the train has left the station. It's not going back. It's just a matter of being able to meet the consumer and where they want to be met, right? In a way, is consistent with the revenue that's associated with the insurance, right? If you have a lot of risk and you're a big company, you have insurance people, you can throw people at that, right? And do it at scale. But if your insurance company's premiums $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and the broker's making 10 or 15% of that, right? You want to get and the consumer doesn't want to spend 3 days figuring this out. Right? If you can make it better, faster, cheaper by using technology, that's a win-win-win for everybody, and that's exactly what I believe we've built and we continue to invest in.
Maybe I wanted to shift a little bit the angle, but put it into something that you mentioned. You started this insurance journey out of randomness. I'd say it was not something that you necessarily have figured out, and possibly the industry is not where most young talent, unless they have some family background or someone close to them that has been working on an agency, on a career, etc., is not the top of mind when it comes to building a career. And this is probably a challenge that we have down the line, given that, of course, it's a very relevant part of the economy, but still people are not aspiring as like banks or consulting or other domains, right? Have you figured a way to attract young talent into Milo? What has been your strategy? What has been the appreciation that they value? Because I think it's a critical aspect of the whole industry to try to figure out how to.
Yeah, I mean, we're not a huge, huge company, but the industry has a like insurance expertise problem, right? And we think we can be an entry point for lots of people who have an interest in sales, right? And that happens to be in insurance. And so we partner with organizations or schools like Ole Miss, University of Kansas, University of Missouri, Kansas State, and others, University of Missouri, Kansas City, and others that when we recruit actively. We have our internship. We have 8 interns here this summer, right? And it's not just them, but it's their ecosystem because we have to continue to feed our machine. And because we're tech forward, and because you don't have to be a subject matter expert in insurance, because we are making the recommendation on the glass, right? And you have to focus on building a relationship, closing that business, right? And so we're telling you what to do, and you get a lot of experience. And some people come here and love it. We've got agents that have been here for 5, 6 years, and we've only been around for 10. That they love it. They don't have to look for leads. We pump leads in, they close. You have other people who have want to go work in other bigger, more traditional producer environments, right? This is a great starting point for them. And so we feed ourselves by investing time and effort in these schools that we partner with that have sales programs that in many cases have insurance programs, right? And the overlap of that are the kids that we want to bring in here. And I think that like many bigger organizations are going to have to, start doing that. I will say, for I don't know how many people are going to look at this, but like insurance is a great, awesome, is an awesome industry to be in. Right, I started off in financial services for the first 20 years of my career. It was a great business too, right? But they both have in common the fact that you sell it once, and as long as you keep the revenue, it's recurring revenue, and so it has a great compounding effect. Um, versus other things where you sell projects or you sell one thing at a time, and then if you once you sell it, you have to go resell it to make your recurring revenue back, and that's not going to change, right? And if anything, insurance risk is getting more complex, and so for young people coming out of college, like financial services, investment management, insurance sales, insurance account management. I think that should really be up there, and we don't have an issue at all recruiting people in this space and then growing them, and then either keeping them or letting them graduate, and we're okay with both.
And maybe to close the loop and to start finishing the conversation, you mentioned the numbers where you are today. If we put this into a 3-year plan, which are the key milestones that Milo has in place to deliver that you're excited about, I guess?
Yeah, now we want to increase the top of the funnel in terms of new partnerships, channel partnerships to get more qualified leads into our world. Right, we have a great carrier panel. We're not really looking to increase the carrier panel that we have. We have partner, and then ultimately, our challenge is the investment that we make in technology is growing our business at a good clip, right? And versus where this business was 5 or 6 years ago, grow at all costs. It'll ultimately pay for itself, right? We're super focused on profitable growth and building a profitable business. And so, we are not. a grow at all cost organization. We're a profitably grow organization, and we're focused on using technology to deliver those outcomes for ourselves. But at the same time, we're on the business to make sure that individuals or small business owners get the right recommendation efficiently. And those things, fortunately, can mutually exist, and that's what we're all about.
David, thanks a lot for this conversation. I just want to drop a final note that I usually do with all of our guests. Do you like reading? Do you
I
enjoy
love
reading?
reading. Yes.
Yeah. If you were to pick one, two, or you name it, books to recommend to the audience and even to me, to myself, which books would you recommend?
So we're talking about insurance, right? And so, and a long time ago, I worked for a guy at the financial services company, and he gave me a book. It's called Against the Gods, right? And it's really about um, like the start of financial services and pooled investing, but it also has
Great
a
book.
big impact on insurance. And I would challenge people who are interested, and this is an insurance podcast, right, to look at that and you'll understand the basics of, like how the whole thing works and how we got to this point. And so I do, one-on-ones with interns and young agents here, and I give them all a copy of that book and tell them, like, read this and you'll understand how it all started.
David, thanks a lot for this conversation. It was great speaking to you. Congrats on all the achievements with Milo, and hopefully the success will keep up to the standards.
Well, knock on wood. Thanks, Martin.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Take care.